I've had 7 of these featured in North American Whitetail magazine. They were stories with them all. You know, it ain't like sitting in a box blind, they come out in a food plot, or sitting over a pile of corn. I knew them. We used woodsmanship skill to hunt them on their own terms. And when I got to be 60 years old, I started shooting on the national and world level. And I've been pretty successful at that. And I really enjoyed it. And I still enjoy it. I started logging at 62. Started shooting competition at 60.
We're in Eastern Tennessee. We're going to knock on the door and see who's here.
Hey, Jake. How you doing?
Bobby,
Yes,
for having us.
Good to meet you. Yeah, come on in. I'm glad I dressed up. I didn't know you was bringing the camera. You all like a dragnet?
Never heard of it.
You never heard of dragnet?
I have not.
Well, I'll turn it off. I think this one's a rerun anyway. When I worked at the prison, we had a shooting range we called the Greenfield that was well in the prison too, inside public state forest. I found a shed there where we shot guns at. I didn't actually find it. A couple of my friends did, and they ended up giving it to him when I killed the deer. After I found the shed, I'd heard rumors about a big old white deer in there. Of course, he got some whistlers here, but he's got the same stickers on the front and back as both his horns. I'd heard rumors for a few years about a real big deer in there, and I didn't know if it was true because it was public hunting, but after they found the shed, I did. And I got in there and got lucky enough to kill him the next year. I learned from him when not to push a big deer. I learned not to hunt him too quick. Back then we was having trail cameras. You know, I had the first ones out, the old trail, I think it's called Trail Master. And you put a camera over here and a camera over here, and it'd shoot a beam and something would break the beam, take a picture. And I'd already got to figuring out that these big deer was nocturnal. If they ain't nocturnal in a heavily hunted area, they're dead by the time they're 2.5 or 3.5. So what's left is nocturnal. I got to learning that if I get in there and push these deer too much and walk around and get in and out of the stand, he's gonna come through at night and know I was there, because I would sit there to dinner and the doe would come through and know I'd been there after just a day or two, and I'd see less does. So I got to figuring out not to push them too early, and I just started hunting him, I think, the 25th. And I killed him the 29th of October. That's one of the earliest deer I've ever killed. I killed one the 25th. And I've learned that these big woods deer that make it to maturity are nocturnal. I also learned that the one thing that will get them out of that nocturnal mode is the rut, the desire to procreate, and that makes them vulnerable. But the calendar has to be right. And I've learned over the years that October 25th is that time. Give or take. When whitetail deer, you never say never or always, but as a general rule. Now, if it turns really unseasonably cold, the 23rd or 24th, I might start hunting then. But generally, it's the 25th. And when I started this back before there was trail cameras, that was always the date I used. Nowadays, if I get a picture of one, say it turns cold, and I get a picture of one of these nocturnal deer on the 23rd or 4th, I'll of course start hunting them then. And then I would only do it if it was unseasonably cold. So I learned from this deer that it helped me confirm that late October, 25th to the 29th, you can kill a big deer that is nocturnal. This deer here, I killed him November 2nd on a rub line. Rubs was that big. Me and my son, Bobby Ray, we was going to Illinois to scout. I said, let's go up there in July, and he's having some issues. And I said, I'm going to pull you out of school, and let's just go up in July in the public hunting in Illinois. It was Siloam Springs State Park, and I'd called up there, and they said they thought there's a big deer or two, and there was an opening in an area that hadn't been hunted before. I always look for these because it's just like a managed piece of property, where you control 100% the hunting pressure. Some of the bucks that has the disposition or the trait, whether it's because they've encountered fewer humans and it hadn't moved them to be nocturnal, or they have that trait to be born with, it don't matter, same thing. They have a trait to move around in daylight outside the rut, and they've reached older age. Of course, it wouldn't have mattered for this one because I killed him the 2nd of November. So he was still on that pattern, and the calendar had pulled him in the daylight from the 25th around the 25th to the 3rd, and he was still on that pattern. So I killed him on a huge rub line. But we went up our scouting and got in there and found some rubs. I was standing there looking around for rubs, and I was looking on small stuff and I wasn't seeing nothing. Ray said, look at all these huge rubs. My boy, he's like 11, I think. And I thought, well, I don't see any rubs. He pointed to one tree, and I got to look, and all the trees was rubbed. I mean, it was just amazing. So I dissected the trail system. Wasn't a funnel there. But I dissected the trail systems and got them all together the best I could possibly do that was on all of these rubs. The trails all had rubs on them, and I got them all together. I think the second or third day I hunted, I killed him. Shot him with an old Sweeky broadhead and an old Hoyt. I think it was an old Hoyt Oasis bow. So that was a good story. This one here was a real good though. I mean, for a Tennessee deer, that's a great deer, a lot of mass. I called him Fate. I don't remember if his player AJ said, "Dad, you're gonna kill him, it's Fate." So I named him Fate. I shot him the year before on his rub line. There's 2 times I hunt big deer. Once is on the rub line when they're on the pattern, and the next is when I'll do from November through the rest of the month. And then I go to a thumb. That deer there, my boys was, even though they was too little to hunt back then, they was really involved in the story and excited about me killing it, and killed him on a pattern, seen his pattern. The rest of the big ones I've killed is pretty well in a thumb, but I learned how to hunt 2 ways. When they're on a pattern, you got to hunt their sign. You got to try to get 2 or 3 of the trails together, and never set up and cover one travel corridor or one trail when you can cover 2. Never cover 2 when you pick a different tree and cover 3. But that deer's special to me. I shot him the year before through the tenderloin. He dropped down. I didn't get him, and I thought I never would get him, but my boys kept telling me I would, and he blew up into a really massive, non-typical. That's a great Tennessee deer. So that was a good story. This guy right here now, he was the real deal, Fred Bear. That's his Archer's Bible, and I've got his old original field notes too. Like I said, that book sold for $2.50. I was looking at it, and it's amazing I was able to scrap up enough to get that. People want to know where I got started with the idea of hunting funnels and terrain features. I've got his old catalogs from his archery magazines. This was when I was at college. That's 1985, and in a lot of these old Fred Bear Tells How to Enjoy Archery, this is where they introduce their new products and how their old products. It's where you do your mail order, and I just wore these books out. But you can see the whitetail deer here by Fred Bear. Sometimes these books will have about turkey hunting and about big game sheep. And this one here in 1975 had the one Fred Bear Tells How to Hunt what he considers to be the world's most challenging big game, the wily white-tailed deer. Fred Bear he was just I never did meet him. I wrote him, he wrote me, we wrote back and forth, sent pictures back and forth, and talked on the phone a few times. And I was going to go up and see him there I think 72 or 3, and we had it all planned out. And I got to looking on the map and just the distance and the old automobile I had back then. I just didn't think it'd make the trip, and I didn't have no money. But I broke down. I don't know what I'd have done. So never did get to meet him, but I wished I had. This is an autographed arrow by his. I just think I was a member of his sportsman's club, charter member of the Fred Bear Sportsman's Club, and I got a lot of game awards and patches from that. But anyway, that was a big deal back then. He was the deal. These fellows wanted me to speak on my archery tournaments. I've been fascinated with archery and the flight of an arrow all my life since a young man, and I used to shoot in local competition and state competition, and then when I got to be 60 years old, I started shooting on the national and world level, and I've been pretty successful at that, and I really enjoyed it, and I still enjoy it, and I still coach archery a lot, and I'm trying to get back into competition. It's just a time thing with me right now, but I sure hope to do that. Well, I've won 8 world champions and 21 nationals, and I hold a lot of state and national and world records too, so I was pretty successful at it. I started a lot of stuff late in life. I guess I was a late bloomer. Wasn't smart enough, I guess, to start some of this stuff earlier than I wished I had. I started logging at 62, started shooting competition at 60. Now I'm doing this here. I wished I'd been doing it 10 or 15 years ago, teaching people stuff because maybe they could learn more. This in here, I killed, I think 1155. I killed him within 5 minutes of dinner. I guess we get conditioned hunting early in the year to think that deer bed down 9 or 10 o'clock. And they do some when it gets hot, the does do that time of year. But the mature bucks, if I'm in a stand and I see a lone deer coming toward me, I get them getting on both because I know it's probably going to be a mature buck. Hunt all day if the temperature is conducive for all day movement. That's the thing about it. That 3rd through the 7th, I'll take those dates of November more than the whole rest of November if the temperature is cold. If the temperature is warm, then those dates on that particular year, your chances go down probably tenfold of killing a big one. We're at the mercy of the weather, and that's the one thing we can't control. This is Mountain Mike. I named him Mike. Clay was videoing me. It was around Thanksgiving. There's an awful dead time there around the 9th or 10th to about the 19th. You can still get them. Don't get me wrong. If you've got the time, can be there, be there. You can still get them. They can get between does, and you can be close enough to where they're between does, you can get them. They got back on their feet pretty good. They generally do it around the 19th through Thanksgiving. It was cold that morning. Clay was sitting with me. A funnel, a great ditch funnel, and I looked over there, and I looked at Clay, and he was just kind of freezing, hunkered down. And I looked over on the far ridge, the area he's supposed to be looking at, and there stood two bucks and a doe, and I got my knockers out. And it was Mountain Mike, and that's the one we was after. We'd been talking about it for 2 or 3 years and decided it was big enough to hunt. And I said, Clay, there's a deer over there, and it's Mountain Mike. He said, where? And I said, right over there. And he looked, and Mountain Mike started kind of away from us. Said, I ain't go up the hill. And I said, he's coming right to us. Get the camera ready. And Clay said, well, Daddy, that deer's going the opposite way. And I said, you wait and see. Of course, I knew how the ditch run. He was going around the head of the ditch and come right here. And I killed him. A great story because my son was with him. Learned a lot about deer hunting him. He was very nocturnal until that time he shouldn't have been. It was really cold, and we killed him about 10:30. So I done an evaluation of these big deer I've killed once they're off their pattern in November, and it was equal. I'd kill like 3 or 4 around daylight, 3 or 4 early morning. Mid-morning, 3 or 4 around dinner, 3 or 4 mid-afternoon. The biggest one I ever killed was mid-afternoon. Then late evening. It's even. And if you leave and get out of your stand, either because you don't have the tenacity or you don't think they're moving, then you're really hurting your chances. You're just exponentially hurting your chances. And I explained that mathematically in my new book. How you're hurting your chances. Most people wouldn't have been in the stand then. It was cold and windy. It never got out of the teens, and it was windy, and I think around 10:30 I got him. That's old Rattlesnake. He was 7 years old when I killed him. He was better the year before. I got several of his sheds. This is his 3.5-year-old. This is his 4. And this is 6.5-year-old. The other side had a drop. That was his 6.5-year-old. He was a little better that year. He went down just a little bit. He taught me a lot of stuff. He taught me that even in the big woods where there's hunting pressure, I wasn't the only one hunting this property. He taught me even in the big woods where there's hunting pressure, every now and then one with that trait to move in daylight all through the fall outside the rut can get by. I got his picture several years. He was 7.5 when I killed him. He really wasn't what I wanted until he got to be about 6.5, and then I started hunting him. I never did think he'd get out of the 140s, but he finally developed a pretty good rack, mainly because of the number of times. But I got his picture in daylight all through, and I knew that if he ever made what I wanted to kill, then I'd be able to get him outside the rut on a pattern. And I did, and it was one of those rare ones that got by hunting pressure with that trait to be 7.5. Hardly ever with these bucks, if they don't turn nocturnal time they're 3.5, hardly ever will they get by, but he did. He just had a little niche there and got lucky. And I ain't gonna say it was his intelligence. They're all smart. Instead of their intelligence or maybe their ability to use the terrain and the wind, I think that their nomadic movement saves more of them than anything. There's just no pattern to them, especially in November when most of them are moving. I knew he was one I could kill early, and I got him. He's the earliest I ever killed one. The only one I ever killed before October 25th, and I got him October 1st. So occasionally you'll get to hunt a buck that is not nocturnal, even outside the rut. Most of them are nocturnal until the rut hits them, and that's about the 25th. Great story. One of the older deers I've ever killed. He was 7.5. Named him Rattlesnake. When me and Clay, we went to check trail pictures of him. Clay was allergic to poison oak, so he was standing back here on the road, and I went over to check a trail camera picture, and because there's a lot of poison oak there, and there was a rattlesnake laying there, and I told Clay, I said, there's a pretty rattlesnake laying here, and he said, Daddy, I'd like to see it, and I said, he just shed it. He sure is pretty. I said, I'll bring him out to you, and I got my foot on his head and got him caught and carried him out there. We looked at him, yeah. Then we got to look at them pictures and wanted to see them because we knew he was 3.5. We knew he might be in that area. I fooled around and kind of forgot about the snake, I guess, and loosened my grip, and he got around there and bit me. So anyway, we decided to name him Rattlesnake. Well, we got the old hog here. I killed him when I was, I think, sophomore or junior in high school. They thought he come out of Catoosa, but there was no farmer in the head of the valley. He would run his cattle off and eating all of his feed, and he told me and a buddy about it. My daddy took us up there, and I had an old British Army gun, had the stock all the way out. My buddy shot it through the leg, and he took off toward him, and I happened to get lucky, real lucky, and shot him in the head. I've carried that thing around from house to house. I lived in an old farmhouse up here on the mountain, and the chimney caught on fire, and it started singeing him, and I got him off the wall, and finally got the fire put out. It done a little damage, but I've carried that old hog around since I was in high school. And still got him. My daddy mounted him. He's a pretty good hand at doing stuff. This old deer here I killed one cold November, public hunting in Illinois. Went up earlier and got on some good sign. Found a fun on. Found where he was coming and going off of private ground. And that's one of them deer I killed in November 17th. So when they are locked down, you got to hunt. You still got to be there. And I killed him mid-evening. Most people wouldn't have been there then. Man, it was cold. Al Gore and Bush was locked in the election, and I wanted to see the results. They was locked in that election deal, and I come out at dinner and quickly checked and ate a quick bite and went right back. I didn't stay out. Another guy hunting with me stayed out until late that evening, but if I hadn't went back there, maybe about 2 o'clock or something, I think I killed him. Shot him on a dead run. I knew I had him. I'd shot a lot of running game with my bow, rabbits and stuff. I knew I had him. When I pulled in front of him, I knew it was right. Still shooting fingers in, really, just strangling my fingers. Man, he looked up and seen me. He was coming hard. He looked up and seen me, and boy, he did start then just huge strides out through there, but I was able to catch up with him mentally and physically and passing. And I knew I had him. So that was an interesting story. That deer scored up in the 180s. His points run from, I think the shortest main point is 12 and a half to 15 and a quarter inches. A lot of mass, big old tines, and he was a great deer. I've always enjoyed wildlife photography. We've got a lot of good pictures of deer and other things, and anymore I've enjoyed writing some of my philosophies or quotes or whatever you want to call them, poems. Here lately I've been writing a lot of songs. One of my favorites, Where Did All the Woodsman Go? But here's a quote I wrote, and I've done this photograph here of this deer. Then I wrote, the sharp tongue of a cool breeze carried a thought to me as I waited for you to stray. Tell me a ghostly story, my gypsy friend. Where have you been today? Whose eyes did you fill with tears? Whose spine did you fill with fear? Whose heart did you care to break? Whose spirit did you jolt awake? Whose soul did you dare to acquire? Whose woods did you set on fire? Whose mind did you lead astray in the deadly game of do and dare that you must play? The sharp tongue of a cool breeze carried a thought to me as I waited for you to stray. I write a lot of these. All of these are in my new book. So I put one of my best pictures right here, and I think of a deer. I went in there to set up one of them rubs, and I was going to photograph this deer. He was already there, but I had my camera ready, and I got a good picture of him running away, and I think that would have been better. There's all kinds of pictures of deer rubbing trees, but I like it. And I think this is something we all ought to think about. This quote here, I'm really proud of it. Could this magnificent, wild, and free creature finally be mine? I looked him over and tears filled my eyes as I realized all of my time, efforts, and dreams are in vain. I stooped down knowing it can only be after my feathered hunger has purged from existence the thing that I desire most, that I am allowed to approach him. As I reached out and touched him, his soul tells mine, now you have set me free, and it is you who forever belongs to me. So I think that's the more you mature, the more you think along those lines, I think. It's a little bit like that quote I read earlier. This is one of my best pictures. That's Mama's old mailbox. I don't know which one of us shot a hole in it back in the day, but got some old gourds on it, that old sparrow nest and cardinals. And pretty old home place there. And I wrote under it, Mother Nature autographs her work with excellence. By the simple beauty of a cardinal's flight, the brilliant essence of nature is manifest. What you see in nature defines who you are, and who you are forever. I literally ate my weight in cheese and crackers like I have doing a lot of things, but getting that picture. I was shooting slides, and I bet they was just, I went through boxes and boxes of them for weeks until I got the shot I had dreamed up in my mind. And nearly threw it away because I seen it was a little blurry, but I'm glad I didn't now. It was what I wanted. So anyway, it turned out good. But you know, there's a few of us old timers left that hunted deer the hard way back before the technology, and you had to match your wits against them. And I think it's a shame that woodsmanship has been lost, and myself and my friends at Gene and Barry Winslow is doing what we can to pass woodsmanship on to the younger generation. I don't know if it'll take or not. They're so involved in this cell phone and looking everything up and instant gratification. And I believe that's why we have these school shootings, we have people depressed, we have people miserable, because they got no challenges no more. They get that instant gratification, and they hadn't really took the time to learn a skill that really takes a lifetime to learn, and then not succeeding every time because you don't have the instant gratification. Learning how difficult life can be, learning how difficult hunting one of these big bucks in his own terms can be, and then learning from that mistake and learning from the next one and learning his nature and learning about him, and then finally succeeding. But when you succeed the way I have, you cherish these trophies. There's none of us true woodsmen, you're going to go in their house and see a cap and a pair of sunglasses on these deer. We respect them, we cherish them, because they were hard gained. You give a kid an automobile and see what happens to it. And then you let him earn it, making a little money at a time and working hard night and day, sacrificing time with his friends to earn something, and see if he don't cherish it a little more. These animals are to be respected and cherished, and they're not to be disrespected by putting caps and sunglasses on them, hanging signs from them. No, you can't disrespect wildlife more than giving it human traits, because human beings are generally jealous, and a lot of bad traits involved where you won't find that in nature. My goal is to pass woodsmanship on. It ain't to make money. If I make some on the side, that's fine. It don't take much for me to get around and get by. After this many years of learning and perfecting a trait, I feel like at this point in my life, if it only benefited me and I couldn't pass on the joy of what I've learned to others, then my life will be a waste, and I certainly don't want to feel like that. Appreciate y'all inviting me to do this and coming in here and bringing a camera with you and all that. We'll watch some more Dragnet if you want to. Y'all have a good day. Thank you so much.